is this season a failure if you don't win a championship?
You know, I've answered this a few times recently. I just don't see the world that black and white. It's absolutely our ultimate goal, which is to win a championship. For us, kind of compartmentalize the regular season, we have a goal, and it's to put us in the best position to go out and win a championship. And that was a success. And I think that the way these guys played over the summer, I think brought a lot of joy to Dodger fans all over the world. And it's a special group. And now the focus, the preparation, all that went into this leads to these next 3-4 weeks. Feel really good about our roster, and now it's a race to 11 wins, and feel as good as I can about it, in the sense that in October you need really talented players. You also need good fortune, and from our standpoint, we've got what we believe to be really good players, and you know, Doc and our coaching staff will continue to put guys in positions to succeed, which in turn helps get more good fortune. And so it's absolutely a factor in October. And with the way these guys have played and how hard and the way this team has come together, I'm excited to watch them go out and compete.
Did you realize 8-10 years ago how much a part of good luck, fortune plays in the postseason? Or have you learned that?
It's hard to remember yesterday, much less 8 or 10 years ago. I don't know. I mean, I think you know, we're so mired in what we do, and pouring ourselves into doing everything we can to have the most talented 26-man roster we can, and to have the depth to survive a season and the talent to succeed in October, that I don't, my brain just doesn't really go there, and it's hard for me to put my finger on it, but I think it's easy to see. Now that doesn't mean that you don't have to have talent. You have to still be a really talented team, but you also need some good fortune. And you know, from our standpoint, we've gotten that sometimes in October, and sometimes it's gone against us. And you know, for us, it's about doing everything we can to control what we can control, and go out there and you know, try to be the first team to win 11 games. Although I guess I have to stop saying that, because someone can win 11 games, and yeah, wild card too.
Is when you starting game 1 in the DS at all going to be opponent driven, or is that just about accounting for the odds?
Yeah, it's not opponent driven. We feel like we have 2 exceptionally deserving pitchers who have been huge parts of our past success, are going to be big parts of what we do this October. And you can argue different things. I think some of it will be, you know, getting with them and talking. We just don't have to figure that out right now. And so we're more focused on things that are a little bit more time sensitive. Both are great candidates for game 1. The other will be a really strong 2 and put us in position, because if we're fortunate enough to get through the DS, there's implications of what that then looks like in the CS. And you know, again, I think you could argue a lot of different things, and from my standpoint, it's just a good problem to have, to have 2 guys so deserving.
When you saw Kershaw walk off the mound in early August, did you think he'd be in a position where he is today?
I was nervous that day, not having the clarity at that point. When we got back to LA, talking to him that morning on the way to Dr. Watkins, I was nervous. And then getting through that appointment, I think all of us were able to breathe a sigh of relief, and knew that he would then be back and that we were in a good spot. But yeah, for 24 hours it was not comfortable.
you guys talked at the deadline just about like placing the number of bets that you'd have enough of these guys who are injured come back and help you. Do you feel like you have enough of those healthy pitchers to get through a GS, CS, World Series?
Yeah, I mean, I think this arguably will be our deepest 13-man pitching staff, and that's what's missing a few guys. You know, Daniel Hudson obviously would be incredibly helpful. You know, we'll see where Blake Treinen is. We'll see where Dustin is. But I think we're going to have a really deep 13-man pitching staff that can match up in different ways, and will be really good at preventing runs.
What are the chances Dustin and Blake are ready for the DS at this point?
We're fortunate we get the weekend to kind of take it all in and figure it out. You know, I think both keep taking positive steps, which is helpful, but we'll kind of take this weekend. I think we're savoring this weekend more after what we went through last year. So we'll take the weekend and figure it out.
What about the off day between 4 and 5? How much does that kind of weigh in your decision for the 13 guys that you're going to use on that?
You mean not having an off
Yeah,
day?
yeah, not having off.
Again, I think that's where our depth will serve us. I think having a really deep 13-man pitching staff is going to help. Have different looks and able to kind of mix some of the work around, I think will help keep guys fresh and keep us in good position to prevent runs.
You guys have gone into postseason series with traditional starting staffs, with atypical starting staffs. What is the sort of downside or upside of just sort of having that more atypical one that you guys will have this October?
It's hard to say. I mean, so much of it comes down to understanding the various strengths of your team and putting guys in the best positions to succeed. You know, I think Doc, Mark Pryor, Connor McGinnis, Danny Lehman do. I would have won a lot of money in Vegas. I would have picked him. And they do a tremendous job of putting guys in positions to succeed. So it's much more a function of, you know, kind of betting on talent and making sure that we have, you know, the coverage to get through a series, and we feel like we definitely do.
Andrew, how much do you believe?
Oh, nice haircut.
Thank you. How much do you believe the lack of days off condensed playoff schedule benefits you guys with the pitching depth that you guys have? Does it feel like the bubble of 2020 where there was no days off and that served you better?
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, fewer days off means you have to rely on more of your roster, and we feel like we have a really deep 1 through 26. And so having less off days, we feel like is a benefit to us.
Do you want to name one of those 2 left-handers as your game on starter today? Or?
Nah. We're going to use the clock.
On the other side of that, having all these days before you play on Tuesday, do you find yourself doing more in terms of analytics anyway?
It's not, I mean, it's more just everything that will happen in a series is, you know, various different matchups and one-on-one kind of battles, and then what happens from that. And, you know, with a starting lineup, one team picks the 9 hitters they want to face against the pitcher you're throwing, and then you get to counteract that later with what relievers you bring in and what their bench looks like. And so it's just making sure that we feel like we have good matchups through different chunks of opposing teams' lineups, and feel like with the depth and the varied looks of our guys, that we're going to be able to match up really well, whether we're playing the Mets or the Padres. And it's just about, you know, taking this time to do everything we can to make as many smart bets as we can, which in turn helps increase the chances of good fortune. But our coaching staff is already working and grinding through, you know, mainly the Mets, because we know the Padres so much better. And obviously we will pivot as we learn more about what happens in that series, but our coaches are very, very dialed in.
Would you, the two lefties you were talking about for games 1 and 2, would you potentially, with their postseason experience, especially on the road, think about starting 1 and 3, and maybe when the other guys start at home, or home again?
No, I mean, I think, you know, from our standpoint, there's potential cost to that if you're able to advance beyond it. You know, we just want to play this division series and do everything we can to win 3 games, and then be in the best position we can to then win 4 games in the next round to put us in position to go win 4 more. And so we're not going to get cute with that. It's more, you know, a race to 3 next week so we can be in the best position to go out and win the CS.
Is Kimbrel going to be 1 of 13?
No, we're still meeting and talking through the composition of our position player group, of our pitching staff. I think as we learn more from some of our players in terms of health and where they're at, I think we'll have a lot more information to be able to figure out exactly what we're going to do.
If Dustin is available, how many innings, could he give you?
I mean, some depends on how much he throws this weekend that we'll figure out. But I think he'll be built up to be able to go 3 to 4, depending on efficiency, et cetera.
Is it important to have a right-hander who can do that? We have 4 lefties. Who can do that in front?
I mean, having Tony obviously helps, but I also think, you know, we've got a lot of really talented right-handed relievers as well. And so I think depending on who we face, I think we're going to have ways to match up throughout that we'll feel good about.
Does Dustin need to show that he's throwing the ball well this week in addition to being healthy, just sort of blocking his spot on the DS roster?
Yeah, I mean, you know, obviously when a guy has Tommy John, the #1 thing to look out for is how quickly they can get back to regaining their stuff. And then once you have that in place, execution is usually the last thing to come. The good thing about Dustin is his whole career, he has been able to execute. And so it's a typical kind of progression back. You know, the other day here, we thought he executed extremely well. You know, it helps that he has some experience. It helps some how much he wants this after sitting on the sidelines last year and watching it, which he describes as not being that much fun. And you know, we're continuing to evaluate that, but I thought last week was a really positive step forward.
Are you guys comfortable using him out of the pen, even coming off the surgery? Does that make that choice a little bit harder to factor in at all?
No, I mean, I think you can, then you're getting into warming up, and when you bring someone back, it's not necessarily the pitching out of the pen part. And so, you know, we'll, depending on how things play out, really with anybody, we'll make sure they have the sufficient proper time to warm up, and then depending on how they respond to an outing will dictate when we can use them again. That will kind of feel out based on who's on our roster and how guys are doing after.
With Treinen, he hasn't bounced back. Usually, he's going to have to prove that he will kind of back-to-back.
Not necessarily.
Does that factor in with your other pitchers? I mean, again, not having that off day, like you're going to need guys who can bounce back frequently.
Yeah, I mean, we have that, and so, you know, I'm sure we'll get down to, you know, X number of guys for, you know, whatever, 1 to 3 spots, and figure out what the rest of our pitching looks like and that factor it in. But I don't think it's realistic to say that we're going to have Blake in a position to where he can, you know, take on 4 of these 5 games or something like that. That's just not going to happen right now.
Andrew, just quickly with Chris Taylor, who's feeling better and should be ready for the DS, how important during these next few days for him to get back from some neck payments, and how are you seeing just left field kind of play out when you do have guys like Trace Thompson who has really stepped up, and even Joy Gallen who can be a threat?
Yeah, you know, for CT, this is something that he went through last year. Wednesday, having a hard time with days of the week. Wednesday, he hit in the cage, threw, and felt really good. So from all I've heard, he's going to be in position this weekend to take down at bats and move around both in the infield and outfield and get some reps this weekend, which we feel like will put him in good position for Tuesday, but we'll take this weekend and kind of evaluate that. Before the neck thing popped up, you know, he had been grinding and working really hard on the swing and started to see some real positive momentum, and it's just to get him back to that point. And so we'll have the pitching in place this weekend to give guys as many at bats as they need and be able to work through things, but confident that he'll be good to go.
Is this the best team you've ever constructed?
I don't know, won the most games. It's a hard question for me to answer. Thank you, Dylan. Being so mired in it, like the perspective of this versus something else is something I'm not very good at. It feels like it is, but that's by no means well thought out. But feel like between the position player group, and not just what they do in the box, but what they're capable of on the other side of the ball, defensively, coupled with our pitching, it feels that way to me. But most importantly, I know it's a really, really talented group that is well positioned to do everything we can to go out and win 11 games and win a championship.
What was your first emotional, immediate reaction when you heard this spring that the manager had gone on national radio and said the team was going to win the World Series?
I liked it. It's not something that I would do, but I liked it. And he's right. Like, if you don't believe that, then, because I definitely believed it. I just wouldn't necessarily have said it out loud. But I love what he did. And, you know, he put it out there, and, you know, I think it captures a little bit of the difference between us, but I enjoyed it. And he's right that everyone should believe that, or what are you doing?
Got time.
You want to double down?
Did you watch did you watch the Cardinals Phillies game?
A little bit in passing as I was meeting and doing different things.
The ninth inning, the closer. So what, you know, they have a closer's problem. What's the situation of the closer?
The fact that we have a lot of really talented pitchers that my sense in talking to our guys is we'll match up and put ourselves in the best position in whatever inning our bullpen comes into a game, and that there will be someone really talented that we feel like can get those outs in the ninth who will be standing. It's the benefit of having the depth of pen that we feel like we have right now. And so that could look different one night to the next. It could look different depending on the opponent we're playing. But the most important thing is we feel like we have a number of guys that can handle the moment and have the stuff to do it.
Andrew, when we talk about Julio Diaz, what he's done for the last 3 seasons, so can you talk about his growth? And I know you can't tell us who's gonna open, but what's the confidence level you guys have in him?
Incredibly high. Julio is an incredible competitor. You know, the whole world got to see it in 2020. You know, I feel like in some ways that was kind of his coming out party. And then what he's done the last 2 years, you know, I think has really opened eyes all over the world in terms of just how talented he is, and is one of the best left-handed pitchers in the game, and competes as well as anybody. You know, I think there's always questions of how guys will handle a moment, how guys will handle October. With Julio, that's never a question.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.